Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Capstone Defense and Offensive Strategy Equifax Data Breach Case Study Project and the Cybersecurity Best Practices. Just to introduce myself, my name is Subhash Halvi. I have 21 experience in IT industry and I work as a solution architect for a well-reputed government organization and my role is as a solution architect. Subject of expertise is in network and security is concerned. Okay. Agenda for today is to study about the Equifax data breach, the breach occurrence, root cause, which the vulnerabilities in the systems were exposed, the new cybersecurity framework mapping to the incident and the recommendations. So this is the brief high-level discussion points which we will go through. Okay. Coming back to the Equifax data breach, this is the executive summary in March 2017. There was a breach of around 147 million individuals from the Equifax company, which was an credit agency kind of thing. So around a lot of across US and across the geography from Europe and other places, the data was breached, and the fallout was Equifax and consumer was severe in terms of reputation, in terms of financial losses to the organization, and the credibility of the organization is concerned. Coming back to the reasons, key facts. So let's look at the key facts of the major data breach. 147 million records were compromised, highlighting the severe impact of inadequate security measures. Financial losses. I think Equifax um, massive losses around 1.4 billion. The 125 million cybersecurity insurance was not able to protect the organization because there were estimated investigation, remediations, and infrastructure overhaul required for the organization. So the breach involved an exploited data from more than 76 days undetected and lack of poor monitoring and incident response protocols. Um, so let's say that so this three facts key tell us about which led to the huge reputational damage and regulatory and legal consequences for the organization. Let's jump into to understanding the life cycle of the timelines of the breach and so understand the implications for future security measures. So life cycle March 2017, the Apache Software Foundation a severe security CVA 207564 was released and in the Apache Struct web framework. March of May 2017, the Equifax IT professional required to apply the critical patches, but in this case, the patch was not applied on one of the systems. May 2017, mid of May 2017, so the attackers exploited by sending crafted hackers were gained access to the foothold of the Equifax server and then getting access to the network and to various others, accelerating the access to other systems is concerned. So May 2017, May to July 2017, so it almost like 76 days the interview spent without detection. And they leveraged the poor internal network segmentation. Notably, the breached web portal had access to dozens of a database. In one of the investigation, it found that it had access to 51 databases. Functionally, it was supposed to have access to only 3 databases. Okay, so continuing with the life cycle, so how the discovery happened, I think there was an expired certificate on the IDS system which was renewed on July 2010 17, which triggered the exploitative data going out of the network, and that's how the detection happened. Because of this IDS system was not such expired certificate, and there was no detection in place. So once the expired license was enabled, they were able to detect it. September 7th, 143 million customer data was breached. Equifax publicly announced this information, and which was again um, estimated the later revised to 147 million. In summary, the Equifax database occurred as a known critical vulnerability, and attackers were able to infiltrate the network once inside the network. The lack of defense and a weak network segmentation and poor access control and disable monitoring enabled them to steal data undetected for over 2 months. So, so let's do look at the root causes of this vulnerability. So this was the CV7638, the Apache, the arbitrary commands on the target web server by sending an specially crafted content HTTP header. The Apache Software Foundation had released on March 17th. It's come to notice during the investigation that March 9th, the internal security team had requested the internal IT teams to patch the severity 9.8 within 48 hours, which was missed on not applied on the critical system ACI's consumer dispute portal, which was finally compromised. So Equifax lacked a defense in depth to mitigate the impact. The compromise the portal was not isolated; it was connected to other systems. There was lack of segmentations, and Equifax investigation identified four major failures: identification, detection, segmentation, and data governance. The breach to plunder the network. In other words, the root cause wasn't just the software bug; it was absence of safeguard like strong access control and monitoring to limit the damage. So just to summarize the root cause, I think it is the immediate cause of the breach for the Apache Trust 2 CV7638, which allowed the attackers to exploit the system. Contributing factors: incomplete asset inventory, which hindered the ability to monitor and secure all vital components. Additionally, the poor credential hygiene and expired SSL certificate on the ID is distributed to emphasizing the need for more robust security protocols and practices. Um, so currently, I think we have gone through the life cycle of the incident. We also looked at the dates, the timelines, and also looked at the root causes concern. Um, so part of the investigation, it was revealed that it was not only the lot of security practices, there were a lot of organizational failures also. So let's look into the organizational failures for example. So multiple organization and governance failure requests contributed to success of the breach. So House of Oversight Committee investigation later conclude that because it failed to implement an adequate security program to protect its vast sensitive data, and the breach was entirely preventable. Several key issues in the Equifax governance and risk management practices set the stage for this incident. So let's look into the organization failures. I think poor asset management and identification and risk. Equifax lacked comprehensive centralized inventory of the IT assets and software. Different internal team maintained incomplete list of systems and applications, leading to the gaps of vulnerability management. Siloed structure and communication breakdown. It was known that the CISO was reporting to the legal department instead of directly reporting to the CIO or the CEO, which this diluted in accountability for security. Lack of fair governance, accountability, and oversight. There was a culture of cybersecurity complacency at EQX. The House Oversight Report noted the patching and certificate renewals were known problems areas that remain unaddressed. In fact, two initiatives that were tracked as a problem areas of patch and digital certificate management turned out to be the pivotal failure leading to the breach. Data governance and protection failures. Equivalent data handling practices were not made the breach far worse than the sensitive personal information in databases were stored in plain text, so meaning once attackers gained access, they could directly read and exploit data without needing to break the encryption. In summary, equals organization mismanagement, cybersecurity practices, asset identification, and risk governance to communicate was the heart of the breach. So let's now look at we looked at the incident, the timelines. We looked at the root cause. Let's look at once the incident was identified, how was the response also, right? So they were identified as key errors, and there were significant impacts on the incident response also, right? So let's look at the critical errors. So public disclosure, delay in public disclosure requires took around 76 days. July 29, the breach happened, and September 7, 2017, to inform the public. That was a lot of delay. Call center issues were also identified, unprepared customer support and communication. When Equifax finally announced the breach, the company was unprepared to support the millions of affected customers. They hastily set up a dedicated breach information website that was separate from the main domain and call center, but both were immediately overwhelmed by the numerous number of calls received to the call center. Breach website confusion, public relation and transparency issues were identified. Equifax initial messaging was widely banned, for example, included language that appeared to limit consumers' legal rights and arbitration clause. If they had signed up for credit monitoring, which caused public backlash, until Equifax clarified it would be enforced that for breach related services. Overall, Equifax major missteps in responding to the breach: slow disclosure, poor communication, technical gaffes, perceived leadership impropriety amplified the damage. Okay. If we look at the recommendation on the incident handling, the preventing a breach at equals magnitude limited damage should one occur requires a comprehensive prompt stakeholder notification. I would have prioritized faster notification to those affected and to regulators. Transparent and consistent communication. A cornerstone of effective incident response is clear, consistent communication. Upgrade of the customer support capacity, knowing the breach involved nearly half the US population would anticipate enormous inquiries and preparation would have been significantly scaling up the call center would have been a top priority. No tolerance for internal mistakes. I will strictly manage internal coordinations to avoid mistakes taking like tweeting incorrect links. The IA incident response team will provide clear guidelines to all employees on approved messaging and resources. Okay. Uh, So and also we will also have look at engaging the required external parties, regulators, and the authorities to ensure that we take their guidance and help in such an incident. So this is one of the major incident handling procedures we would have recommended for such an vast incident is concerned. So as we look at now the recommendation and the incident handling, let's look at the some of the frameworks which could have helped to manage and detect and protect this incident is concerned. I am trying to um, map the incident to the well-known NIST cybersecurity framework. Okay, so let's deep dive into and try to map the incident to the pillars of the NIST cybersecurity framework is concerned. Okay. So this security framework at the heart of the this cybersecurity is the governance, right? And so let's deep dive into each of the pillars and see how we could have if there was a strong security framework deployed in Equifax, how this would have helped kind of thing. So under the identify, um, so we could have looked at the poor asset inventory, untagged legacy systems, unpatched attack identity systems. So the identification process would have helped in identifying and classifying the assets criticality is concerned. Protect, I think there is where the unpatched software, weak IAM and encryptions would have helped the Equifax organization. In the detect phase of the framework, the expired certificate disabling IDS and no anomaly detection could have been in well detected framework or could have helped the organization. In the response stage, delayed disclosure, no clear communication plan would have helped Equifax with the NIST framework to have a right set of procedures which are tested and for incident response and communication to the stakeholders. This would have helped in deploying a playbooks also for the organization to ensure right processes are built in. Recover, I think, ad hoc remediation, no tested recovery playbooks, so this is all a helped kind of thing, right? So if you really look at the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, would have helped the organization to have a strong security governance framework. So, where in each of the stages, the framework would have helped the organization. So this is about the framework. I think now we will deep dive into the recommendation for considering the preventive measures for security. So as always, it's when we have a very critical organization and a lot of IT system and services exposed, defense in depth is the approach which we need to consider kind of thing. Right now, considering the defense in depth, we will look at the Equifax incident and the organization structure and see how the defense in depth could have helped them kind of thing, right. So let's look at, so I'm trying to break down this into two categories. One is offensive and the defensive strategies. Understanding both are critical, protecting digital assets, and the measures will help in robust cybersecurity posture. So let's look at the deep dive into the defensive strategy. Physical security, while Equifax breach would have entirely not helped with the digital physical security, but physical security plays a crucial role in control unauthorized access to the facilities and hardware where sensitive information is stored. Right. Firewalls and network security. Network security controls include firewalls and other gatekeepers, help segment the networks. Internal network equivalence breach highlighted failures in one's inside, then flexibility to others little. They have little resistance. Network segmentation, divide your network segments, go level to the micro segmentation by having each layer of DMZ application databases and other layers of security are the standard 3 tier 4 tier architectures are built in so that each component has a layer of security this concept. And a zero trust approach could have helped in this for the Equifax organization is concerned. Another difference is I think that we should have the IDS and IPS security systems. So as you know, in the Equifax case, the IDS license had expired and there was no detection, which led to no detection happening of the exploitation of the data. So, so having a good IDS and IPS intrusion prevention system helps in detection phase. Um, the web application firewall is one of the recommendation which I would like to put across because web application firewall helps in to detect and protect some of the SQL injections, cross-site scripting, and others well-known OSF 10 vulnerabilities using the well-known WAF solution is concerned. So in this specific Equifax, specific exploits like the Apache Trust vulnerability could have been also protected if the WAF solution was in place. Uh, Deep dive inside, they should have also an endpoint and an endpoint protection like a DLP, where any if the data is getting exfiltrated, they could have been detected. A good endpoint detection solution with anti-malware, malware, and EDR solution is a must-have kind of thing to have a deep critical assets or all assets to be protected using these solutions. So apart from that endpoint protection, so as I mentioned, so we're having an antivirus solution. If attacker had compromised the Equifax server, then they installed to extract the data. A good EDR could have protected the behavior of the privileges escalation is concerned. Also having a good application security software life cycle and with the DST and SST processes might have also helped the Equifax. Given that there was a breach via an application vulnerability, application security practices are among the most critical, which needs to be built in within the organization. Runtime with the future of most of the applications becoming microservices based application, running an well-known application and image security is we must have to make sure that all the images on a microservice organized structure and all applications are also protected. Let's deep dive into the offensive cybersecurity. This now we looked at the defensive side. Now let's look at the offensive cybersecurity strategies which would have deployed, which would have helped Equifax. Penetration testing, identifying vulnerabilities through simulated cyber attacks is one of the goals which would achieve your organization. Red teaming, blue teaming, validated controls by testing the defenses against real world threats would have helped Equifax. Vulnerability management, as we know, one of the gaps in this was the vulnerability management program, which led to this start of the incident is concerned. And also encryption of sensitive data, because as we know in the Equifax case, most of the data which was stored are stored in plain text, but making sure your data at rest is encrypted and tokenized and data masking is employed will also help in the offensive strategies. So key lessons learned. I think as we come to the end of the summary, I think we looked at the incident, lifetime, the root cause, organizational security mapping to the NIST cybersecurity framework, and what we are the lessons learned, right? So the lesson learned, cybersecurity is an enterprise responsibility. The lack of culture within equal leadership did not place sufficient emphasis on the resilience, negligence, in terms used investigations and the contribution of poor decision and inaction. Importance of basic cyber is the patching, building and tackling IT security can't be neglected. Not patching a known flaw and not knowing a system inventory letting certificate expire, they were preventable errors. Continuous monitoring mission, time to detect essence is the breach of Equifax, time to intrusion and 2 plus months once enormous damage was caused. Defense intent was not there, as we understand. There were the ones the attack was able to take control of the server. They had full and free access to all the systems. Strong identity and access management is the most. Equifax attackers succeeded in the because they were able to get the plain text credentials which were stored on some of the servers released to weak and default passwords. They were able to exfiltrate with the network is concerned. Incident response planning and drills, like Equifax response was adjusting a lack of practice plan. A huge takeaway is that importance of having a detailed incident response plan. So this is the summary of the lessons learned, and so any organization having a framework since matter like the NIST cybersecurity framework or the NIST 853 or the ISO 20000. They provide a structured approach to managing your cyber risk is concerned. So key references for giving a thanks to being in the industry for so long, looking at the Equifax history and the studies, some of the key references I had referred to build up this case studies concern. So thank you for your attention. I think I appreciate your participation in this Prospect Capstone project presentation. Hope I was able to bring out the required know-how for cybersecurity response is concerned, the know-how, the frameworks, and how this Equifax incident can be a lesson learned. It was also a lesson for me as a student of the industry to understand the importance of each of these subjects is concerned. Thank you very much, and all the best, and have a great day. Thank you.